a lot of the content in planning and organizing for virtual learning success you'll see it again if you come to any of the other sessions like the blended learning essentials and all that kind of stuff. So mostly because a lot of the important parts of setting the foundation for success this fall really do fall on planning and organization. And I think that we take for granted the fact that we're really good planners as teachers. But there are some tips and tricks that are a little bit specific to the whole virtual nuance that we can look into. So for those of you who have not been to any of my sessions before, hello, welcome. My name is Lynn Hilt, and I work at the BCIU as a program administrator in OPDC, and we've been busy kind of putting together some sessions for everyone in the county this fall, because we're hoping to support you as best we can in your online learning endeavors with students. Every school in the county is doing something different. Some are going scaffolded, some are going hybrid, blended. Like if you pick a name, a school is doing it. Some are starting full virtual. So it's just a matter of finding your groove, finding what is going to work for you and your students. I have a lot of examples in this session that I've seen shared by other users, other teachers, other educators, and they're all just so different. And that's because the needs of our communities are different. And so it would be tempting to be able to take things that are already made and just use it. And I think in a lot of instances, we can do that. We can tweak them. We can look to other schedules to guide us. But we do have to do some of that front load work now to make sure it's successful down the road. And lots of that work is being done by your administrative teams, your teacher leadership teams. So hopefully what you're being given at the district level will align with some of the philosophies here with the kind of the best practices we're looking at. So I think along this roadmap of where we go in terms of scheduling, first and foremost, establishing your priorities and establishing a real focus is really important, and just knowing how to begin. Scheduling will make or break your virtual learning. And I hate to say it, but I'm just going to say it. It will make or break it. So as much as you can, I know that there are things being put out by districts saying, this is the way it has to be. And then, we work with it and we try to maximize learning through schedules that are really well designed, but just make sure that you're using your teacher voice and advocating if you're ever run into an instance where it's not designed to be kid friendly. And then organizational strategies. So how can some digital tools help us with organization and communication in this virtual space? So for me, establishing focus right now, our heads are everywhere. We're just all the things just kind of on our to-do list, never ending. And when the kids log in for the first time, and I know some kids showed up or that they show up on Monday in some instances face-to-face before starting virtual. So what should we do? What should we do with our time? Focus on what matters for sure. So what does that mean? Well, let's get to know our learners. I don't even want to say relationships first because it's so cliche at this point. The whole SEL movement has made sure that we all understand that relationships with kids are really important. I don't think there's any teacher who doesn't understand that. Hopefully. But it is the reality. Kids are coming to us sometimes not face-to-face that have never met us. My second grader is going to be assigned to a teacher who he's never met and doesn't know anything about. So, and she doesn't know anything about him. So how do we get to know our learners and how do they get to know us? Taking it slow is really important. It sounds easy, and I think we'd all like to take it slower than we're currently taking it, but really easing into that transition to virtual, making sure everyone's with you along the way. And then I'm using the phrase Marie Kondo, the curriculum, because it pulls out of a piece by a researcher that I'm going to share with you. If you're not familiar with Marie Kondo, she is the simplifying your life guru. So how can we simplify what we're teaching? because everyone knows the curriculum as it stands, the standards as they're written, they are a mile wide and an inch deep. And so that's not going to do well in this virtual environment. We really need to focus on what we're teaching and what kids are learning and why. And then how do we build out some schedules, some routines that are going to work for our learners? And we're going to have to experiment. We're not going to get it right the first time, unfortunately, because it would be nice if we did. But we're just going to have to be flexible. We're going to have to roll with it, and we can do it. So getting to know our learners. How do we get to know our students in virtual learning spaces? Well, we can do fun things like check-ins. So here is our check-in for today. I'm going to put the link to this Jamboard in your Zoom chat so that you can jam with me. If you've not used Jamboard before, this is our interactive googly space from the Google friends. Let's see if you can, yeah, I see some friends coming in here. The rose and thorn activity, but and you know, you don't have to do, oh, yeah, get it pink. What is something positive that you have to share? And what, let me just make sure you have editing access. Yeah, you do have editing access. Something positive you want to share right now, something you're feeling good about, something thorny, something icky that's going on with your life right now. You don't even have to tell the truth if you don't want to. So here on the left, these are your Jamboard tools. If you are very, very good at digitally writing, you can write it in with a pen, but probably you'll want either a sticky note, and if you just click, you can add your own note, or you could use the new text box. If you've not been to Jamboard recently, you can grab a text box, just click, and text, that'll just be a clear text box. So go ahead, let's see your rose and your thorn. Take a minute to check in. And then you can drag, yeah, oops, I knew I was gonna do that. You can drag your sticky somewhere. And if you're just watching, then you can watch. Let's see, my rose is, I get to work with awesome teachers. My thorn is, now this is my one thing about Jamboard, and I didn't have to design it this way, so it's lesson learned for me, but I made these backgrounds just to be pretty, but they do move. You can't lock anything. I am drowning in never-ending Google Slides. But, you know, I do love it, so, but I really am drowning in them, creating all of the things. All right. Yeah, so the unknowns are definitely the thorn, right? This is great, this juggling the two kids. My kids are here. I have seen them briefly today. I just made sure that they were safe before I sat back down for my next session. Yeah, totally crazy. All right, I love this. I love your check-in. So this is not a complicated thing to do. It takes 3 minutes at the start of your session. And I think front loading this type of thing is really good for our work with students, just letting them know that you are there to hear from them, and that, yes, you know, curriculum is on the agenda and learning is really important, but that will not happen in the absence of trust and that foundational understanding. It takes a long time to build in person, and potentially it's going to take even longer to build that virtually. These are collections of community building activities, ways that you can help create safe virtual spaces where students feel accepted and connected. And sometimes educators will just have this view like, well, kids are really comfortable in digital spaces. Well, no, they're not necessarily comfortable in your Zoom meeting or in your Google Meet. And so they might not know the kids who are in there with them. It's overwhelming enough for them in their digital social spaces. And now we're asking them to spend an equal amount of time in a virtual learning space. And so how can we make that a place where they are feeling good? So all of these link to examples of collections of things that you can visit, ideas for sharing, icebreakers, classroom tips, different virtual composition notebooks, activities you can do together, all that kind of good stuff. So check those out as you start to build and get to know your students. So speaking of Zoom, and I'll just, of course, say that whatever your district is requiring, of course, you should, follow the recommendations. But remember, when we impose rules like this, all student cameras must be on, all must have teeth and hair brushed, cannot wear pajama. When we start dictating what students wear in a virtual learning session, when we tell them they can't eat, and we tell them where they have to sit, that breaks down relationships. It does not build them up. It just automatically instills in them a sense of lack of trust from our part to theirs. And we can do better than that. Considering the home and life circumstances of so many of our students, it's kind of inappropriate for us to demand such things. So take an approach of that person who really wants them to feel safe in the space. This is a teacher, Teresa Wills. She actually took one of those rules posters and she turned it on its head. These are teacher expectations that, you can count on me. I care about you. You're important to class. I want to include you in class. So if you're going to chat with us, great. If you're going to use your voice but not your video, awesome. If you want to be on video, I love that. Great. And I'll work with you no matter what you need. I will keep you safe and care about your health. And if you don't feel safe, please let me know. And I think that's a big part of all of what we're, constantly we're bringing ourselves into students' homes through virtual means. And that's a huge point of anxiety for a lot of people. I want you to be comfortable. I want you to be confident online. Be comfortable. Bottom line, be comfortable. And yes, be appropriate, but be comfortable. I value your personality. I'd love to see your avatars. I'd love to see drawings you make or selfies you take. And I want your basic needs to be met. So if you have to use the restroom while we're in synchronous chat, then you're going to turn off your video. You're going to go to the restroom. And if you need food, let me know. Like, these are the kinds of things that as a virtual learning student, you think, yeah, I want to show up. I want to be here for this person. At the start of last spring, when the world shut down, distance teaching, a lot of lessons were learned by a lot of people. Start with empathy. Provide multiple entry points for your students. I don't buy into the digital natives theory. So I think some students are very comfortable with the technology for learning and others are not. So we have to meet them where they are and certainly embrace that less is more mentality. And keep safety, digital safety, privacy, and security at the forefront, and really work to prioritize the curriculum. For what distance teaching should not be, it should not all be about pushing out assignments. It should not all be about links to, videos you have to watch. And it should really not be limited by one venue through which to communicate. And it should just not be about keeping kids busy from 8 to 4 or whatever schedule was designed for you. We saw a lot of that in the spring. We saw a lot of people just take what they did in traditional classes and digitize it. And that didn't work for a lot of kids. And I think we all learned that. So how could we be really intentional about what we're asking kids to learn and how they learn it? So I know right now that you probably have a lot of questions about content, about curriculum. So just take a minute, think about what you're wondering about curriculum and what you're wondering about content in the virtual learning environment, whether you're fully virtual or whether you're doing some kind of blended combination. Go ahead and add your ideas to the chat, and we will discuss them. So give me a minute. What are you wondering? Does anybody wonder anything? Or are you all? You got all, if you have all the answers, also put the answers in the chat because I am going to need those to tell everyone else. Yeah, so one of the big questions is how am I going to cover the material given the circumstances are so much different? Yeah, so and some districts are going all in with a virtual, like a distance learning program, an online program. And that program was likely purchased sometime in the summer or end of the spring, and teachers and students really haven't had a chance to learn the new platforms. Trying to limit worksheet type activities and get more interactive with some of the traditional learnings of grammar and spelling and things like that. Yeah, so all the good questions, right? So one of the theories, and I'm not a huge fan, if you've been to any of my sessions, you probably get where my philosophy is coming from by now. But I'm not a huge fan of this whole idea of there's like the gap, the gap that happened because of coronavirus gap. Everyone is in the same boat, right? Like around the world. Everybody kind of had a halt on consistent learning in the spring, no matter how well equipped your district was to shift. There was so much going on, there was so much trauma that everyone is a little bit, let's just say, off of where they might have been if we stayed on that path. But that's kind of all relative. That's kind of all aligned to standards that are arbitrarily set by states and all those kinds of things. And in the absence of that type of external pressure, we can really focus on where the kids are and move them along to where we hope for them to be. And that happens by focusing on the essentials. And that is all a part of prioritizing the curriculum. Now, some districts and some states are setting priority standards where they are working through the curriculum and they are highlighting or noting these are the essential standards for the third graders for math for this year. This other stuff, it's great if you get to it, but let's really focus on these priority standards. So we want to make sure that we are attempting to do that. If your district is not doing that work currently, it might be something that you want to bring up to your curriculum people. I do know the state is developing lists of priority standards. It might already be out. I was looking for it, but I couldn't find it on the PDE website. But I will look back through my notes from OPDC because it has been talked about, because everyone is asking, like, where do we focus? So there are some strategies that you can take with you. This is from the NIET, Taking Great Teaching Online document. But what are the most essential understandings we want students to have? And really, you are the keeper of the curriculum. You have that wealth of knowledge for your grade level and for your discipline. You know best. When students leave you, what are the things they need to know to apply to their future learnings? And whenever possible, focus on curiosity, focus on keeping it in an inquiring type of setting where students are constantly asking questions and wanting to know as best as we can, versus you're in third grade now, you need to learn these 10 things because you have to. So how can we keep it exploratory? For designing student learning outcomes, Lynette made a really great point. Include student voices, building in that ownership piece. We know kids have to be more independent workers in virtual learning settings. Not all kids have adults with them during the day. If they are learning virtually, they might have older siblings helping, they might have a babysitter helping, or a grandparent or a parent, but who might not be equipped to help them. So how can we help them constantly evaluate what they're learning through self-assessment and through taking ownership of that? There is an online teaching standards rubric that you can look at as you are looking to design kind of exemplary learning environments where you're communicating your learning objectives. Everything is really well organized. You're generating interest about the topics. You're communicating through, these are synchronous considerations if you do have that luxury of having synchronous time. So feel free to check out that resource. It's really comprehensive, especially I think there's at least one administrator here. It's nice to be able to pull that out as like some key points for your teachers to look at. And when it comes to Marie Kondoing the curriculum, this comes from Jal Mehta, and this is his piece that he wrote about principles and design elements for ambitious schools during COVID. Looking for competency-based approaches. How can students prove what they know through their actual work? How can you do cross-curricular work? How can we use demonstration of mastery through single-point rubrics, through assignments, not through quizzes and tests? Can we involve students in independent study with community support? How can we take advantage of the community organizations? There's a huge project coming out of Albright College and the SRI, the Science Research Institute. They have put out project-based learning opportunities for K-12 students that align with the needs of Berks County. So identify a problem that we have in Berks County and design a solution for it. And it takes them through this whole process, and it teams them up with curricular experts and scientists in our county. It's so cool. If you want more info about that, share it with me. But doing fewer things and doing them well, that is the whole approach here, rather than going so fast through something that we lose the meaning of it. For scheduling, think about, and not all of us have the luxury of having a block schedule, but even if you're given 40 minutes with a class or for a content period of time, how do you chunk that into meaningful things? There has to be a check-in. There has to be small group time, giving kids independent time to help them build up their capacity as an independent learner, and then working with them through projects, working with them through practice, infusing direct instruction where it makes sense. So here are some priority instructional content standards from Achieve the Core. So they've essentially drilled down the core standards, but you can look and wait for PDE to come out with those if you haven't been passed along those already. So scheduling. Like I said, you likely have been given a schedule to you. If you've been given freedom in your schedule to design your own schedule, that is awesome. Here are some key points to remember. I'm always going to go back to keep it simple. And unfortunately, you cannot, with any degree of success, just replicate the daily schedule of a fourth grader into a digital format. It's happening. It's especially happening at the secondary levels, but it's really not the best approach. So if that has happened and you are dealing with that, kind of try to wrap your heads around it, have some conversations about it. It's just going to be too much with the transitions, the Zoom time, just too much. Incorporate breaks. Physical breaks, absolutely. Off the computer, somewhere else, doing something. Mental breaks are essential. Building in time for mindfulness, for physical activity. Off-screen time is necessary. K-12, I don't care how much time a kid spends on his phone throughout the day. It is very different to be in a synchronous Zoom for a long period of time. You all know that either presenting or like my day is like, I will just collapse at 4 o'clock because I've done a lot of speaking today to a screen, and it's exhausting. And by the end of it, I would not be able to focus my mind on what I need to focus on. And when you do get those opportunities to be face-to-face, whether they're sitting in your classroom socially distanced or whether they are with you in a synchronous meeting, that time is crucial. How are you going to use that time? I have heard right ways of using that time, and I've heard wrong ways of using that time. And we'll talk about that. But like, for example, a wrong way is to give kids assessments while they're with you face-to-face because you can make sure they're not cheating. That is the wrong answer. That is the wrong answer. So for schedules, you do not need to recreate your school schedule to be successful. Zoom fatigue is real. Consider the developmental appropriateness of your virtual schedules. And number 4, you might have the ultimate schedule designed. It is amazing. It works for you. It works for most of your kids, but it will not work for all of your kids. It will not work for all of your families. I'm thinking about now, like, I do the bulk of my online trainings during the school day. And if my son was a virtual learner right now, I would not, there is no supervision that I could give him aside from him sitting right next to me and then just hearing me talk through however many sessions. So sometimes working families, they need their kids to work in the evenings or on the weekends. Because that's when they're available. So you just have to be cognizant of that and really flexible with deadlines and due dates. So what I want you to do is I want you to look at these schedules. And it's just 2. It's a tale of 2 schedules. And the first one is this. And it was shared by a mom/educator on Twitter. Her name's Amanda. And she said, here's my 6th grader's virtual learning schedule, which is already giving me a panic attack. And here's the full version of it. So on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, the 6th grader has different blocks. So they're on A, D, and then E, H. There are times along the left-hand side. They are getting 50-minute live sessions 4 in a row before they get a break. And then there are independent and collaborative study blocks 4 in a row during that time as well. Wednesday, they have all their blocks for 30-minute sessions. There's a nutrition break and a lunch break. And in the afternoons, they kind of wrap up on a Wednesday a little bit early. Now, so just take a look at that, generate some feelings about it. And then I'll show you another one. Here's one shared by Dawn on Twitter. And her lead is that this is how you center children and take care of teachers and families. Leadership that centers stakeholders matter. Now, I'm not sure that this is her district or not, but she was sharing this schedule. This is for middle and high school. From 8 until 9:15 every day, teachers have planning and preparation. They might be doing communication, grading, feedback, IEP meetings. They have that time, first hour and a half of the day. There's advisory built in every day for middle school students. And then for high school students, they have academic support built in and also advisory built in. And for those of you who work in secondary, you know how important advisory is. Fridays are closed to students. It's professional development and planning, where students are doing their asynchronous learning. They don't have to be in a Zoom at all. They might be getting small group assistance. And then on Monday through Thursday, you can see they only have 4 periods a day. They have frequent breaks, office hours at the end of the day for additional support. So the tale of 2 schedules. What works about that? What doesn't? What are your initial thoughts about both of the schedules that were shared? Just throw your ideas in the chat if you have a takeaway. I love to hear about it. Feedback. Yeah. Schedule 1, I'd quit before I'd start. Oh yeah, correct. Yeah, so think about it from a kid perspective, but also from a teacher perspective. You have 5 minutes between blocks to transition to probably another Meet room or Zoom link, and then also get your stuff loaded up. I mean, that doesn't seem like enough. Also, we have consistency, so students have structured time. And you're right, the first one tries to mimic school, and it's just not helpful. Now, what I did on this slide, I put together, let me see if I can link this exact slide in everyone has its own slide. Let me go to everyone. And we don't have to do this now, but if you wanted to if you are someone who does have the leeway to look over your own schedule, just take a look. Some of these, all of these you can click to make bigger. And again, I understand that your district is going to mandate some of the structure of this. I'm not arguing that at all. But I like how there are some that are very clear, like teacher-led time, break time, independent time. This is like color coded. This is a grades 3 to 5. This is an example schedule that students might have. How does something like this work for you? This is good. We got movement breaks. We have for a third through fifth grader reading, math, science, and social studies. There's special time. There's brain break. They're done at 1 o'clock. They're done at 1:05 because that's a big chunk of time on Zoom or online. Here's one for kindergarten. They have icons where they can click and go to their team meeting or go to wherever it is they're going. And the teacher kind of broke that out there. And again, that's like a shortish day with some Schoology work at the end. Okay, here's another one. Here's one with like all the blocks. This does have some breaks, does have a lunch. Looks like 45-minute lunch, and then flex time, check in with teachers as needed. So that wraps up a little bit earlier. So the reason I'm giving you these is to just take a look at how they were developed, look at how they were structured, so that you could think about using some of those color codes or ways that kids and parents understand what's expected during that time on the schedule. This is a 4x4, so 4 periods, 4 times a day. And there's a lot going on there with times and numbers and things. So take those, think on them, reflect on them as you're building your own. For sure, when you're spending that time together, getting everyone ready to learn is really important, whether you work with the same kids every day or multiple groups of kids every other day. Short and sweet. Keep it short and simple. A lot of these were created by someone named Sean Junkins. I linked to all his creations in my slides because he just put everything so cleanly in one graphic. I was just happy for it. Just quick and easy ideas. Draw it, write it, raise your hand. Just do a little poll to kick it off. Show and tell. So he has some ideas there for you. For breaks ideas, here's a great choice board, digital calming option. So just giving your kids the option of doing some yoga, stretching, whatever's important to them or the way they like to relax, calming sounds. And then here's a cool choice board for some physical activities. So choose 1 to 3 workouts for the day during your break time, which is great as well. When it comes to that scheduled time, are we scheduling us synchronous time with students or asynchronous or a combination of both? And for those of you still trying to like wrap your head around those terms, this is a great way to think about it. Synchronous learning is live on air. Asynchronous learning, on demand, okay? Synchronous learning, it's happening in real time. We're getting active discussions with students. In some cases, we might be teaching to students in our physical classroom as well as a group on Zoom, and we're going to talk about that next week in one of my sessions. Real-time engagement, just like your face-to-face. It's a dynamic learning experience because you can pivot based on the needs of the students in that moment. So it can be a flexible learning, and then you can give support as needed during that face-to-face time. When students are engaged in asynchronous learning, it's happening perhaps on their schedule. They have everything they need to do it, but they can choose when that's going to happen, and it's self-paced. They have access to their teachers, but it might be through chat, or it might be through email. They might not get to them in that moment like they would if it's synchronous. So what kind of things work really well in asynchronous environments, and what kind of activities are best suited for synchronous? And there are pluses and minuses to both. I think there's a lot of power in asynchronous instruction and asynchronous learning with the proper support at the start of the year, helping kids understand how to navigate places, where to go to find content, how to turn in things. I think that's all really important. So in asynchronous mode, students really do hold the reins over the pace of the learning, where they're going and when they're doing it, the types of order they're doing things in. Students can submit work. Teachers can give feedback on that at a different time or when it's submitted. There are fewer instances where there might be technical difficulties. Like if you're in a live session, of course, things always happen with the Zoom or the Google Meet. So the benefits, of course, of synchronous being together, just building that relationship piece, helping kids feel connected with one another. You have that opportunity as a teacher to provide on the spot clarification or on the spot explanation about a question that comes up. Typically, the students are following along with a direct instruction or an activity that is teacher led. And in synchronous, if it is well scheduled out, it can become part of the routine. And I think more districts will be taking advantage of synchronous teaching and learning this fall, because we learned from parents last spring that they really wanted that a list of assignments wasn't enough. A list of things to read and do just wasn't cutting it. So asynchronous, how does it look? What's a good structure for that? Here's another great piece from Sean. What is the objective here? Like, why am I doing this during my asynchronous time? What's the purpose? An overview of the lesson might be helpful, or an overview of the task, maybe step by step. All of the instructional resources students need are in one place: the videos, the links, the docs, the slides, whatever they need. There are instructions that the student can understand. If you teach littles, it might need to be audio recorded instructions as well, or if you have students who need that audio support. Sharing everything students can use for practice, application, and it should have the opportunity for communication. Even though you're asynchronous, how can students contact you, and how can they collaborate? Not every activity will involve partner work or group work, but certainly infuse those opportunities when appropriate. And the reflection piece. Students should be able to reflect on that time when they're finished and say, yes, I accomplished the goal, or no, I fell a little short and this is what I need from the teacher to continue on. And then teachers will need that time to reflect and move forward. This is a great piece. It's a little blurry. Things to do when you're together and things to do when you're asynchronous. Just kind of thinking about the differences. Like, make the most of your time together for conversation, for discussion, for student exhibitions of learning, for partner work, for hands-on labs, for simulations, for covering sensitive material that students might have questions about, or something that might be traditionally very difficult for students to understand in your content area. When you're doing really in-depth text analysis, things that they would benefit from having a group of people together learning about. And this is all the kind of stuff that they can do when they're asynchronous. They can watch recordings and on-demand lectures. They can go through slide decks. They can read on level text that they can comprehend on their own. They can work with classmates collaboratively. They can take quizzes. They can do quiz activities or Quizlets or Kahoots or whatever. That's the kind of thing that they can do asynchronously. This is making the most of your time together. Utilizing breakout groups in your schedule. There are lots of ways to do this. It depends on the grade level that you teach and the content area and what your goals are of the breakouts. But this is a great example of how to facilitate a routine for synchronous breakout. So in this specific example, Caitlin Tucker is sharing, she's a high school English teacher. It's a 10-minute breakout. She's asking you to mute your mics and work on this subject-verb agreement activity. And while you're working, send me your questions via chat, and then circle any question you want to review with the group. And then when they come back together, they do a debrief. So giving kids that independent practice time, then coming back together. Here are some ways to organize breakout groups. So this one is by kind of how you are feeling about the task. Like number one, I'm going to need to hear more about this from my teacher. I would like to be in room number one because I just need more support. Room number two is, well, I just need the instructions again, but I think I'm pretty good. I might have some questions about the assignment. And room three is, I'm ready to get started. I don't have any clarifying questions, and I know that I can switch rooms if I need it. So see how that like kind of sets the stage for where kids can, they are using their understanding of themselves to choose a room. Same here. Room number one is the chatty room. You can turn on your microphones. You can chat with people who are there. You can talk. It might be noisy in there, so just know that. Room two is collaborative. It is a focused collaborative group. You can ask questions and share ideas, and you can ask in the chat, but you're not going to have a noisy room. And room three is quiet. You want independent work time. You don't want distractions. And then everybody, when you're done, we pull everybody back together in the whole group. So dividing it out like that as well. So I thought that was very clever. Again, with the video, on or off. We talked a little bit about respecting the boundaries, putting the student at the center of your decision making. Tori Trust created this, which I think is really important. Things not to do. Don't tie students on video to grades, to participation points, to attendance. Figure out a way to let students turn on and keep on their video at their discretion. Allow them to use blurred backgrounds or filters if they are unable to, if they don't prefer to be on camera. Try to figure out ways to ask kids to check in real time, and then use lots of digital assessment tools to constantly evaluate how they're doing. Do not award extra credit points for kids who are on video. Do not trick kids into turning in their video. These things break trust. These things build trust. And there's lots of reasons why this matters: equity, personal reasons to kids, safety, and privacy. And it is uncomfortable sometimes. I mean, I've gotten very good at this, that I teach to a blank screen. I am essentially looking at my own slides because my Zoom is hidden. So it is a challenging time. If you are having a student who you are concerned about attendance, that's a conversation you have with the student and the family, rather than just assuming that since their camera refuses to come on, that they are having some kind of, problem, a defiance problem. So just keep that in the front of your mind. So we're heading toward the organization piece and just thinking through how to build your virtual roadmap. When you've established those priority standards, it's time to back map your plan to help students achieve their goals, and look for really student-friendly tools to help them be interactive and create, and then build out those familiar routines so you can help students gain a sense of familiarity and learn what to expect. So some of the planning tools that I like, we just kind of created this online learning planning document. Feel free to make your own copy and use it. Another popular one is the Oreo planner. It's objective, responsibility, expectation, and organization. And the reason I like this is because you plan holistically. So you think about the entire week. How much total time do you have face-to-face, perhaps, with students in a given week, and what do you have to accomplish? And then how do you design your schedule around that? So instead of thinking like, okay, Monday is this, Tuesday is this, Wednesday is this, think about how many minutes you will be synchronous with that student, and then what you want to do at that time. How many asynchronous minutes do they have in the week to accomplish X, Y, and Z? And then how do you make that happen? So these are all templates that are available to you. And also planning experiences around the 5 E's, which we see a lot in the sciences, but it's really helpful to build out online learning experiences with the 5 E's as well, because it's got these great components where we're engaging students, they're exploring something, we want them to explain their learning, or I explain something from the content, and then elaborate and evaluate. And it can look synchronous, it can look asynchronous, and what tools can I use for that? So think about designing, and lots of hyperdocs actually use the 5 E's as their their format too. So don't forget, for schedules and routines, it is likely that all families cannot adhere to the same schedule, so try to be flexible. Infuse routines whenever possible, like when assignments are due, how students submit work, and make sure the communication pieces are there. Consistent office hours, consistent live contact hours for students and parents, so that they understand how to contact you. All right. So the last piece, as we wind up here, is organizational strategies. And for sure, there are different ways to organize content. What one person prefers, another might not. It's likely that your district has told you the tool or tools that you should be using to organize learning, from an LMS to a website, perhaps a document with a list of tasks, and then a combination is most likely what's happening. You might be using an LMS and a document. So consistency is really important. And I have said this from the beginning, and I get rid of my black home there. That you need to have a home for your students, whether it's an LMS or a Google site, and that the expectation and the routine is just so vital. I wanted to get to the point last year when my child understood, it's Tuesday, I log into this, I do this. And I wanted that to happen without a lot of my support. There was just so much going on with a lot of the tasks he was given that there was no real familiarity with a routine. And that is one struggle that we had. The perks of a learning management system, of course, are that you can push out digital assignments, you can collect assignments, you have lots of opportunities for questions and discussions in those spaces. You can also post materials, pretty much anything you need. LMSs are the most robust option. Google Classroom not quite being a full LMS, but finding its way, getting closer and closer. It's like a one-stop shop. Supports discussion in that space. So those are some of the perks of using a space like that, Google Classroom or Schoology. Websites also have their perks. For one, they're more visually appealing. You can display links to all your resources. Here's a great collection of kindergarten, the things where kindergarten kids need to go. It's very visual. My student could look at that and say, oh, I'm going to go to GG Math, and they'll know it right away. For a website, if you build it a certain way and publish it a certain way, you're limiting that barrier of having to log in. You simply share the link with families, and your kindergartners can get where they need to get with one click. And yeah, in my opinion, it's much more aesthetically pleasing than an LMS could be. If you're looking to build a site, we are doing Google Site sessions. We have done Google Site sessions. We will continue doing them. It's just a really friendly place to build out all of the content for your class, for your content area, for your courses, and just make sure everything students need is in one place. And so these are all examples that you can feel free to check out as you're clicking through the content. And yes, had to mention the Bitmoji Classroom sweeping the nation by storm. For right or wrong, Bitmoji classrooms are being created. They are visually stimulating. You have to keep that in mind, that if you do have a child who has trouble focusing visually, this may not be the best solution for you. One teacher said, I wasn't really into Bitmoji Classroom, but I made a Netflix homepage for my students. So that is cool. These are all the things they need. It looks like Netflix, but it's her LMS stuff. Make sure you're not violating copyright when you build these, but it does have a lot here. This is a science classroom. These are the current vocabulary items that the teacher is teaching about. The teacher put her video here. This is her and her stuff, and then her dog. And then these are the hot places where students will need to go: Remind, Google Meet, and all that good stuff, okay? And if you're feeling ambitious, you could even do this with your hallway. So each one of these teachers, this is like the landing page of their class websites, where you visit the 8th grade team website and you are taken here, and you can visit exactly what's going on in Mr. Brown's class and Mrs. Greer. I mean, this is a team affair. I'm a little bit jealous of this. I feel like we need one for OPDC. I'm actually going to send this to Danny right now. Jealous. So lots of people are building out organization, using slides for organizational strategies for students. So I did not create any of these. They are all from amazing places like Slides Go. This is a weekly planner. Here's a today's activity or a choice board planner from Slidesmania. Slidesmania has done digital notebooks. Slidesmania has done this mini LMS, which is kind of crazy. It's like an LMS built out of Google Slides. And the way that it works is you just kind of add the schedule and you can click through all the different sections of content for what students might need. And then the days of the week are on the left. And here's live sessions, here's email me, here's files. I mean, she's just awesome. Paula is awesome, and she makes it look easy. And if you're wondering how students can add new content to their slide deck after they make their own copy in Google Classroom, she has some tips and tricks for doing that. Like if you start a digital notebook with 6 slides and then students need to continue adding to it, the best approach is to teach them to copy and paste from your master into their decks. And there are ways to keep it simpler. You do not have to build out this elaborate deck. Here's a very clear set of things to do, links, assignments, things like that. We saw a lot of this to start kind of the year, just breaking out a table just by content area, day of the week, color coding some things, putting the links and such. Here's a similar learning grid by subject going across. I like this one because it has the teacher's contact information right on it. So cool. So these are just examples you can use. Plus, if you teach in a team or with a co-teacher, you can share the load and you can co-build it, which is very nice. Here are some more examples. If you are a secondary teacher, here you go, research-based argument writing playlist. This is a full-blown argumentative writing project that spans several days that the teacher has mapped out with all of the information students need and all of the tasks that they need to complete during this time. So this could span several days or weeks even, but everything's all in one place to make it easy to access for the student. Same here for this climate change exploration, very clear. Read this, watch this, listen to this, and connect like this. Just very clear, very graphically pleasing. So just some things to remember with when you're designing student-friendly online learning, clear expectations, front-loading information in terms of how to actively participate, so you don't have to play catch-up, and so there's not so much wondering about things, and just making them feel at home and just making sure everything's ready to go for them. I know that at any time we could be transitioning from one mode of instruction to another, whether we start face-to-face and transition to virtual or make our way back into classroom full-time. So I think that designing experiences and organizing in ways that can help support that shift at any point will be really helpful. I'm really happy you joined me today. I know this had a lot of information. This was the first time I did it, so I apologize if it was too much for the 1 hour. But I have recorded it. I will be posting it. We are offering ACT 48 hours for all the live attendance sessions, and also if you watch the on-demand session. So I'll put the link to that in the chat. But I'm going to stop the recording, and then I will open up the mic if you have any questions that you'd like to share with the group.